Greetings, Ajamu here, organizer, All African People's Revolutionary Party. I wanted to make a short video and statement about our great brother Kwame Ture, who is formerly known as Stokely Carmichael. And the reason why I want to make this brief video is because there's a lot of talk about Kwame Ture these days, 2019. It's kind of like a renaissance of his ideas and his presence in our movement for justice and liberation. And this is great, but a lot of the analysis about Kwame's contributions and work fall very short, particularly as it relates to the work that he put in. He spent the last portion of his life working for and achieving. So I just wanted to make a quick statement about that part of Kwame Ture. And what I mean by that is most people who are aware of Kwame Ture when he was Stokely Carmichael, a young man in the 1960s, those folks know about his role and his leadership within the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, his role in helping organize the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, a SNCC project in 1964, which led to opening up the Democratic Party and which led to inviting brown folks and women to participate in the capitalist U.S. electoral process. Most people know about young Stokely Carmichael's work the next year in Lowndes County, Alabama, in forming the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, helping found that organization, the original Black Panther Party. And most people know about his work in the Oakland originated Black Panther Party for Self-Defense as its prime minister. So those years encompassed 1960 to 1968. And people know about those years and young Stokely Carmichael's contributions to the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and the Black Panther Party. But after 1968, there's much less discussion and understanding of what actually this African actually did. What work did he contribute? And why he's still relevant in 2019 and beyond. And so I just wanted to address that and say that the trajectory of his life occurred in 1967 with a pivotal decision he made to go to Vietnam during the height of the conflict between Vietnam and this imperialist United Snakes of America. And what happened is the young Stokely Carmichael went to Hanoi and had a meeting with Nguyen Ao Thach, who is better known by one of his pseudonyms, Ho Chi Minh, who was the leader of the Vietnamese resistance against U.S. imperialism. And the young Stokely Carmichael, having lunch with Nguyen Ao Thach, was talking to him about his desire to get a much clearer focus on where he wanted to direct his work going forward. And during the course of that conversation, Ho Chi Minh looked at young Stokely Carmichael and told him, "You're African, why don't you go to Africa?" And through the context that the young Stokely Carmichael had developed through his outstanding civil rights work, he was able to secure a trip to Guinea, West Africa, the next year, 1968. And through the assistance of Shirley Graham Du Bois, Miss Shirley Graham Du Bois, the widow of W.B. Du Bois, young Stokely Carmichael was able to secure a meeting with Kwame Nkrumah. Now, Kwame Nkrumah was the president of Ghana, the first country in Africa to gain its independence in March of 1957. Nkrumah helped initiate a socialist government in Ghana. And that socialist government was making strides not only towards developing Ghana, but building Pan-African unity throughout Africa and the African world. And because of that work, and because Ghana had become the launching pad for African liberation movements all over Africa, the U.S. CIA, or what they call Central Intelligence Agency, what we call criminals in action, they engineered a coup d'etat to overthrow Kwame Nkrumah's government in Ghana in February of 1966. And after that happened, Nkrumah was actively welcomed to the People's Democratic Republic of Guinea, which was led by the Democratic Party of Guinea. And our great son of Africa, Ahmed Sekou Touré, was president of Guinea. So Sekou Touré wanted to make Kwame Nkrumah president of Guinea after Nkrumah was overthrown in Ghana in 1966. And Nkrumah, recognizing that the people of Guinea had elected Sekou Ture as their president, said, I can't be president. And Sekou Ture, undeterred, told him, well, then we'll make you co-president. So Nkrumah became co-president of Guinea, moved to Guinea in 1966, and stayed there for the rest of his life, becoming the first person in human history to be president of two different countries. And during that time, Sekou Ture gave safe haven to Nkrumah, seeing him as the leader and Pan-African visionary for the world. And it was during those years, from 1966 through 1972, when Nkrumah made his physical transition, that he contributed probably some of his best literary works, the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare in 1968, Class Struggle in Africa in 1969-1970. During that time, 1968, the young Stokely Carmichael had an audience with Kwame Nkrumah. And from those conversations, Nkrumah asked the young Stokely Carmichael to stay on in Guinea, Conakry, and become Nkrumah's political secretary. Now, Nkrumah had made the same request to Malcolm X 3 years earlier, but Malcolm, unfortunately, was not able to respond to that request in a positive way. And of course, we know Malcolm came back to the U.S. and was assassinated also by U.S. imperialism. But the young Stokely Carmichael did agree to become Nkrumah's political secretary. And so he moved to Guinea-Conakry in 1969. And in studying the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, the strategic manual dedicated to the strategy to achieve revolutionary Pan-Africanism, which we defined as one unified socialist Africa, the young Stokely Carmichael committed his life to helping Kwame Nkrumah fulfill this dream of achieving Pan-Africanism, which, as Nkrumah indicates in the handbook, is the aspiration which will bring about the fulfillment of the needs, desires of every African on the planet. Or in other words, until Africa is free, no African anywhere on earth will be free. So in the course of establishing this commitment, the first work-study circle or study circle designed to study the ideology of the Pan-African Revolution was developed in Guinea-Conakry in 1969. And that first work study consisted of Kwame Nkrumah, Amilcar Cabral, who was the founder of the PAIGC, or the African Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau, the liberation movement that was based in Guinea-Conakry at that time, fighting against Portuguese colonialism, and the same PAIGC which is now in state power in Guinea-Bissau, as well as a young African from Gambia named Lamine Django, who unfortunately just made his physical transition just a few months ago, and the young Stokely Carmichael. So those four individuals formed the first work study circle, which became known as the All African People's Revolutionary Party's Work Study Circle. Now, it's important to note, because the overwhelming majority of people just do not understand the concept of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. The AAPRP is not just a collection of Pan-Africanists in the United States of America or in the African diaspora or even on the African continent, although we have chapters in all those areas. The AAPRP, conceptually, if you read the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, is the consolidation of every revolutionary Pan-African formation fighting for Pan-Africanism as we define it, one unified socialist Africa. So that would include, as AAPRP, the PAIGC. It would include the Democratic Party of Guinea, which was, again, the party that welcomed Kwame Nkrumah to Guinea after he was overthrown in Ghana. It would include the Pan-African Union of Sierra Leone. It would include the Pan-Africanist Congress and the Azanian People's Organization of Azania, which imperialists call South Africa. It would include all of these revolutionary Pan-African formations into one body, the All-African Committee for Political Coordination, which, once consolidated, is the All African People's Revolutionary Party. It's important people study the handbook and understand that, because everybody I hear talking about it that's not a member of the APRP doesn't understand what I just said. So this is the concept that was initiated in Guinea-Conakry in 1968 or 69. And when that happened, there were assignments given between the four participants in that original circle. The assignment given that Kwame Nkrumah had was to continue to provide the vision for the creation of revolutionary Pan-Africanism. Amilcar Cabral took the assignment to continue to fight against Portuguese colonialism and to drive them out of Africa, which of course the PAIGC, as well as the Popular Movement for the Liberation of Angola and Frelimo, the National Liberation Movement in Mozambique, those three liberation movements were able to accomplish that objective. And finally, the young Stokely Carmichael, as well as the young Lamine Janga, were commissioned to go outside of Africa and to build the consciousness around the concept of an all-African People's Revolutionary Party in the African diaspora. And so the last 30 years of the young Stokely Carmichael's life, who in 1977, in honor of Kwame Nkrumah and Sekou Ture, changed his name to Kwame Ture, was to spread this concept of an all-African People's Revolutionary Party throughout the African diaspora. And of course, he carried that mission out with great integrity, not only in the African diaspora, but throughout the African continent and the entire African world. And so this is critical to understand, because many people, like Panil Joseph in his work, Stokely of Life, that book is a great book in studying the life of Kwame Ture up through 1968. But this period I'm talking to you about, post-1968, up through Kwame Ture's life until 1998 when he made his physical transition, Joseph's book is absent of any of the analysis that I'm speaking of. And this is truly unfortunate for people who are students of history, because we would argue that Kwame Ture's best work didn't happen in Mississippi and Alabama, although that was outstanding work in the mid 60s. His best work did not happen in the Black Panther Party, although that was outstanding work in the mid to late 60s. His best work was those last 30 years, 1968, 69 to 1998, when he formed the basis of the All-African Committee for Political Coordination. He helped create the conditions for this work to take place. What do I mean by creating the conditions? Well, I mean that today, throughout the African world, this concept of one unified socialist Africa has evolved from that first work study circle that was formed in 1969 in Guinea-Conakry to this concept being discussed and organized around all over the African world, all over the African continent, Europe, all over North America, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. And proof of that is just in September of 2018, as well as December of 2018, last month, there were conferences and activities held in Ghana, West Africa, commemorating 50 years since the writing of the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare in terms of the September gathering, and 60 years commemorating the All-African People's Conference, which was organized by Nkrumah in Ghana in 1958. And the focus of those events was to commemorate the work to bring about the vision of the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. So at the September gathering, of which I was fortunate and honored to be present in Ghana, there were representatives from the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, from the African Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau. There were representatives from AAPRP chapters in Tanzania, Kenya, Ghana. There were representatives from the Amilcar Cabral Ideological Institute from Nigeria, AAPRP representatives from the United Snakes and Canada. So this is the practical fulfillment of the work that Nkrumah laid out in the handbook and that Kwame Ture worked to bring into practical existence between 1968, 69, and 1998, where Africans from all of those places I just named had come together to talk about how we can build one unified socialist Africa, where we do this work in Wolof, where we do this work in Ibu, Yoruba, Akan, Fante, Ga, where we do this work in Kiswahili, where we do it in Zulu, in Shona, where we do it in English, in French, in Spanish, where we do this work all over the African world to bring about this vision of one unified socialist Africa. Finally, Kwame Ture is important because of the way that he carried out his work and the integrity he gave to his work. And this is critically important in 2019 and beyond, when so many of our African youth are getting their understanding of our struggle for liberation from YouTube videos instead of concrete and disciplined study of our history. And this is problematic in the sense that anyone can create a YouTube video or videos and create a following based on telling our people anything. Whereas when you look at the example of Kwame Ture, you have an example of respect for our people and dignity. What do I mean by that? I mean that Kwame Ture can never be accused of taking a penny from the masses of African people. Whereas he spent his entire life showing African people how to come together and how to organize. Everybody from the Eritrean People's Liberation Front in Eritrea, East Africa, to the Convention People's Party in Ghana, West Africa, to the Democratic Party of Guinea in Guinea, West Africa, to organizations in Europe, to the Nation of Islam and the United Snakes of America. All of these organizations, if you talk to them, will tell you that Brother Kwame Ture was instrumental in helping push the message of African unity. So if you're a person who says, yeah, our people need to be unified, you can't talk about that without talking about the work and contribution that Kwame Ture has done to that process, never wanting to take a penny from the people. And I know this factually because from 1984 through his transition in 1998, I was able to play the humble role of helping coordinate his engagements, his community engagements, his activities in Northern California when he would come to this country at least every year. And so that gave me the opportunity to spend time with this African and to observe the humility and integrity that he represented. I didn't understand or appreciate it to the degree I should have while it was happening, but 20 years later, I definitely have learned to appreciate it now. Never once did he complain about having to sleep on our couches. Never once did he complain about having to eat whatever food we had available to us. Never did he ask for a hotel or expensive food or anything. Never complained. And that African had to work. He would come here, we'd get one paid speaking engagement from a university, and then he would do 4 or 5 events in the community for our people, free of charge, in terms of talking about the need for us to come together and have a unifying, inspirational message. And he'd do all of this in 1 or 2 days. And he would do this all over the country, all the time, all over the world, all the time. Now, in this day and age of 2019, where a lot of these people who have created personalities for you all on YouTube wouldn't even say hi to you without you issuing them a check, this speaks to the integrity of Brother Kwame Ture, who never asked for a penny from our people and gave so much to us. So if you want more information about Kwame Ture, you should visit our All African People's Revolutionary Party website at aapRP-intl.org. aapRP-intl.org. Or if you want more information, I have a blog myself and a site that has information all the time about our work and the contributions of people like Kwame Ture and all of our strugglers for liberation. And you can find that at www.abetterworld.me. www.abetterworld.me. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I close by mentioning something Kwame Ture used to say all the time. Join some organization working for justice. The problem in 2019 with social media is people who have nothing except bourgeois ideas that have been imposed upon them by the capitalist system have the same platform as people who are dedicated to engaging in on the ground work to liberate our people and contribute to humanity. And so this has created a problem. It's the same as me arguing in front of a bunch of outer space aliens that I'm a better tennis player than Serena Williams. No proof, no actual demonstration on the court, just me being able to say it. And because the aliens have no context, if I sound better, then some people might even believe it. Some of the aliens may even believe that I'm a better tennis player than Serena Williams. So it's important that we join organizations because that's how we get the ability to properly assess what's going on with our people and with humanity, because we're engaged in the work to determine what's going on with our people and humanity. You can't do that if all you do is sit behind a computer screen. So join some organization working with, for, and by our people. And if you don't see any organization out here that fits your desire or your needs, then I'll be glad when this African stops talking on this video organization, and organize for liberation, justice, and forward progress. Forward ever, backwards never. Long live the legacy of Kwame Ture.